Hey, Larry, thank you so much for allowing us to present today. We're very excited what this does within the financial institution space. But a little bit on us, why we started the company. We wanted to enable people's devices to hold their own data. So we believe that just like you have with your wallet, everything needs to be secured in your actual device and in your presence, and then you can share it when, where you choose. And so 3 key principles: secure, fast, and easy. And we'll talk more about that in the next slide. But I have some colleagues here. Patrick Stolley, he's sales director with us, and then Armar is director of product with us. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Let me go first. I started the company here. I really found a real capability to not only protect people's data, but also not have the exposure of a centralized server that actually holds all this PII data. And so that was really the compelling point that I started the company. And then Patrick and Armar got involved throughout the history of this company. And why don't you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Patrick Stolley, Sales Director. Been with Simpello now about a little over 4 years. And Ben first approached me about the product, and it was a little bit of a different product at the time, but so excited about the capabilities of Simpello, and was happy to join Ben in this journey.
Hi, my name is Amar Qureshi. I've been with Simpello for the last couple of years. The sheer product got me interested in it. I think this is one of the unique offerings out there. I've been in enterprise mobility, AI, and IoT world for last 20 years now. So I think this is a really good opportunity out there, and the market needs technology like this. Thank you.
Thanks, Armar and Patrick. So to kind of go into our key tenets of our solution, really secure, focused on, that privacy of that customer, and then syncing up with the different endpoints, terminals that you go into throughout your life, whether it be boarding an airplane, whether going to a teller at a banking type scenario. We want to make it so that your data is transferred securely and privately and locally, so that it doesn't actually hit the network centrally. So that goes into our second kind of DNA component of Simpello, is creating fast recognition and being able to share your information, and then also have the teller or the agent at the terminal be able to service you faster with that context around the engagement. And then, of course, that goes into easy, being able to create simple connections that you're not fumbling for your phone. Your phone can be in your pocket, and then this automatically just sends information with your consent to that venue, and does 2-factor verification of you to actually open up your world and to that venue. I was actually compromised about 4 years ago. I had some other photos that got into my photo stream, and I didn't know if I had photos that I was compromised and got into other people's photo streams. So to really create a partition, so to speak, between that PII information and then what the companies are holding is really important. And then what you'll see with Simpello, we kind of put all that data together at that time in that place so that it's relevant to the engagement. But that makes it so that you don't have to actually hold on to PII data for terminal, for like desktop transactions, as well as on site in the physical space. So what led us to do this, obviously, as well, is the member engagement and how they would actually see the technology day to day. And so we wanted to create that frictionless, fast, and touchless post-COVID type experience that, there's relevance, there's capability of knowing you without having to, type in your last name to actually bring up your manifest. And of course, that goes into our last component here about know me, right? And so, we also wanted to get around, and Patrick mentioned some of the technology that we had required hardware at one point, and we've gone to a total software product. So that reduces the challenge for ROI with a CapEx. A lot of this can be just, OpEx subscription based, so that you can get this service right out of the box. And the other thing that Armar is going to be talking about is that there's not really the necessary capability of a lot of integration with centralized systems. We share that information just in time when that transaction takes place. So the ability to utilize your phone in physical space and make that so that it's automatic makes it so that you're not digging in and having to get apps out and display that through QR code or whatever. Just make it so that you can have your service entree just shared, whether you're at a hotel, you're at a bank. All that contextual information can be personalized and tailored to that event. And that is really what people are wanting to have in our day, is really from desktop to then physical space, you're echoed and it's seamless. And then, of course, we didn't want to make in our platform kind of that big brother capability of tracking you and having it so that people don't preserve their privacy with the seamless solution. So to look at this holistically, the problem that we're providing solutions for is, of course, that PII data and creating personalization, but not compromising that through a centralized repository. Also, the aspect of post-COVID staffing has become a premium in a lot of our locations. So we're able to reduce that by really providing a more, not educated, but a more capable customer coming into that space, and then having that context so that you're not having to swipe credit cards, you're not having to, do different things that an agent would have to do in the past. And then of course, the level 1 data is stripped from that total liability of that merchant. And so that becomes a lot of our solution statement here. So when we're looking at kind of the Simpello platform, we can do a multi-factor authentication. So that means the phone has to be present and the face has to be present. So we're able to know that your phone is there, but then we do a 2-factor recognition on your face. And that, of course, provides us that we can do credit card transactions and that type of thing, so that we know that the device is there, but also a liveliness face has to be there present. And when you talk about accuracy and speed, we're able to know that Ben Robertson is in that location, and then now just say, okay, this is a 1-to-1 match. Is this Ben Robertson? And so this process can go less than 500 milliseconds to actually actuate, as many of the solutions in market are about 3 to 5, 6 seconds to actuate from a centralized server. So we'll talk about kind of this multi-factor vault access a little further. But we also are really excited that we are the solution that's frictionless and decentralized and first in the industry to create a zero trust ledger capability. And then, of course, blockchain and creating that underlying data that doesn't get exposed. So let's do for instance, like on a birthday, within a hospitality context, we're able to say, Ben Robertson has arrived. Is his birthday today? Yes or no? We don't actually give underlying data of my date of birth or whatever. So then that merchant doesn't have to worry about that information. So one of the things that I've mentioned before is the agility of legacy systems. And so that's something that there's a lot less hand holding and heavy lifting to get implemented. So as discussed before, we don't deal with any hardware. This is a SaaS system. And then there's that ability to create the training of staff members that, you know, kind of are seasonal sometimes, and we can't rely on Susie being always there. So this allows not only the staff member to be trained properly with who Ben Robertson is, but also the UI UX from a consistency standpoint. You're able to have more ability to have a consistent UI UX for that customer when they arrive at the bank, when they arrive at the hotel. So that goes into this slide, that we've created a Simpello governance layer that allows information to be blockchain, you know, that you're not getting underlying data, but also you can share when and where you want to share this to. If it's a government agency, if it's a bank, if it's a hotel, you know, or an airline, you can share that information, and it's very consent based. But it doesn't mean that you have to resubscribe to every service like you're seeing on the left side. It's kind of a one-to-one relationship, as this is one to Omni within Simpello. So Patrick, do you have any questions at this point in the presentation?
No, just, I guess, would like to reiterate, you know, as Ben has mentioned, the unique thing about Simpello, that we've got this ability to be decentralized, and everyone's personal information now stays with them on their phone. And so there's, you know, as Ben has mentioned, there's no ability to be hacked, as all these different companies have been hacked recently. So that's the unique ability of Simpello. It's first in class, one of a kind. So, you know, we're very excited about the ability and the feedback we're starting to get from many different companies.
Hey, I appreciate that, Patrick.
Sure.
So one of the things that we're unique as well in is that we can actually put a IDV. So that means a document that verifies the actual face to your profile. So if you're going through, let's say, agentless baggage drop at the airport, you can actually have your ID attached to your face to say, hey, this is Patrick Stolle. The same thing, and we've got tons of patents in this area, but the ability to put voice modalities associated to your lookup. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the teller, you know, that's going through a drive-through. We're working with some quick service restaurants that want to provide unique signage for Patrick when he goes into that bay that knows his recent orders and that type of thing. You can do that same thing within, you know, the banking IF or FI area. So you can see the aspect, and we'll talk more about the anonymous token capability, but once you get authenticated within our walls, then you can get to some of these other systems that could be medical records, it could be age verification, bank information. All of that, of course, can be exposed once, and that's to the merchant, to the consent of the customer, of course, but they can choose to share different information at that point. So let's talk a little bit about our platform and what's distinctive about Simpello on a local level. We call it LID, local ID identification, or local ID. And so you walk up to a terminal and you are recognized just by your face, and it's an anonymous face that you walk up to the terminal, it recognizes you, and then you can say, hey, I want to share my PII information to this terminal. You can also, you know, consent before you arrive to that service, but you can do that. And of course, we're excited to have Intel as a partner in some of our camera vision technologies. So how do you enroll? We're going to do like an IDB workflow here. So you're able to onboard both sides of your driver's license, and that goes into a ID token that is connected with your facial token. And it actually securely goes into your phone. Of course, you do all of this through your phone for sign up. So this can be done pre-arrival. It could be done actually at the location itself once they understand the service and all of that. So when you're dealing with the facial token and voice token, and of course the ID token, all those are kind of disconnected until they're relevant for that service. And you can choose what you want to match to access some of these data vault elements. So let's look at it from an in-action standpoint. The facial token is anonymous, so it does not send any personal data, like I said before, when you get to the actual location. So when you walk up, it's going to say, hey, you know, Ben, or not Ben Robertson, but this anonymous face is in our system, and we're going to actually pull him up for a consent screen. And once you actually say accept to the consent, then you can decide what you want to share to, let's say, this clerk that's in the screen. This echoes a lot of what Apple is doing and Android for the driver's license in a lot of scenarios, but we don't have to actually pull out the phone. You actually have a shared device, meaning the tablet that's in front of you, that actually becomes a part of your ecosystem for that moment, for that time. And so you can share information, and it gives an anonymous token, and you can use that device to actually actuate your service. So in terms of the workflow, it's just a little different, and we feel like it's a lot more sticky for normal life and for adoption of customers. So from a back-end capability, and Mar's going to talk a little bit about this, about the architecture, is that all this is transported through, we call it a Simpello switch that knows that you're there at that location. So we wake up through beacon technology that Ben Robertson is there. And then we can transport that through a secure switch that takes it from the phone to the terminal, or we can do it through Bluetooth or ultra wideband, or a little bit of a mix of that. We call it charring of data. And so we put that together just in time at that point. So one of the things that you can use with charring data as well is you can have centralized data, like for instance, in some of our hotel applications right now, we have a actual reservation that's centrally held of Ben Robertson. He's going to a hotel. But once I arrive, I actually share some of my PII information and my driver's license to say, hey, I'm present now and I want to show my credentials, and also a state regulation to actually share an ID with this venue. And then I can just share that, and then I'm through that ability to get my keys within 18 seconds instead of 3 to 5 minutes. So it's pretty phenomenal. So this is, again, an illustration of when you arrive at the location, customer, their phone becomes securely paired, and you can actually use that as a two-way encrypted methodology. So we use local connections as discussed with UWB, Bluetooth, and transport the anonymous and facial tokens through that methodology. This is an illustration that we would use voice token technology that we're working with some vendors there to provide the ability to do a one-to-one match again. Of course, the phone is there, and then we verify that that's Patrick Stolley that is talking. and then that provides message boarding and that type of thing. So you wouldn't have to, in this scenario, actually show a face, but you can. One thing I will clarify, I know that there's a lot of AI going on within the universe right now, and a lot of voice manipulations. With our platform, again, let me stress, we're using the phone and the voice. So the actual capability of an actual AI impersonation is zero almost, because the phone has to be there and the face. Or I'm sorry, and the voice. So back to the face, you have multiple different options with camera vision or computer vision. We can use a peripheral camera that is like a security camera, and we do spatial awareness to actually define where that person is when you walk into the facility. Or we can use a tablet camera. And just out of the box, we're using this in some of our hotel applications to provide that camera, that spatial and camera recognition of your face, and then also, of course, workflows that we're supporting throughout that. There's multiple different options. Would love to talk to you about your scenario that you're wanting to use the application, but this talks about the vault and what we had talked about previously on a few slides back, that we can actually have stored different vault information. And again, this is in your purse, this is in your back pocket, and this can be shared when and where you want to share it. When you're at that kiosk or that endpoint, you can actually share it to that, and it works like magic. That it identifies that you're there, and you can share that information, whether it be a medical application, whether it be for the actual ability at a teller to give them information to your account, that type of thing, or permissions to go to your account. So again, this is improved experience because we have this LID, local ID capability within Simpello. Talking about a few of the use cases that we're working with. Of course, you have the front of the house, right? You have the member or the guest that's arriving, and you want to create that personalization. We're also providing MFA for different insurance agencies that want that a company needs to know that this person is the person when they're doing sign on to highly secure accounting applications. And you can see some of the on-site commerce products that we have. You can probably extrapolate those. Of course, we have the ability with employees that there's a big issue within our North America, at least, of an employer actually having PII information of the employee. So we actually have the ability for the first time in the history of HR to actually provide a reusable identity wherever you go for that HR type capability. So you can actually port over that information to a different employer, and also share your PII information like your face or your voice for that day when you're there on site. And then once you leave that site, all that information is destroyed. So it makes it so that the employer doesn't have to hold sensitive information about their employees. So to talk a little bit about our customer example, we are doing encoding of keys. So when they arrive on site there to actually encode or actually check into the hotel, they don't have to talk to the agent or the clerk rather. They actually can have the clerk be the concierge. And so that's our objective, is really to make smart personnel there at location, that everything is really tailored to that customer, and the clerks and the agents become rock stars, right? Because they know their customer a lot better and they're able to serve it. And that creates better customer feedback because everything's done for them. They're not doing a lot of manual processes that we've known within this industry for a long time. So Armar, with that, I'll just kind of let you talk a little bit about your amazing work on the back end of our system architecture.
Thank you, Ben, for a wonderful presentation so far.
Oh, thank you.
So, I mean, as you can see, we have a switch in there, which is basically to transact the transactions from point A to point B, which is a user app, to the kiosk. And the key difference is what we call is a zero trace. So there's nothing stored in the network anywhere. So there is no data retained anywhere. So if you have a sniffer, you can't do anything. You can't break into a server and get the data, because once the transaction goes from user app to the kiosk, the data is used for the identification and then it's destroyed. So nothing is held at any network. We also recognize that there are many players out there, many services out there. So we have an orchestration server that actually talks to all the external services out there. For example, PMS is a property management system. So we can connect to as many hotel systems out there. Or if there's an IDV vendor that customer likes, we can work with them. We're not tied to one single vendor out there. So we have an open architecture that allows us to use services from any vendors out there. And of course, we can, as Ben was talking about, data vault and all that. So not only we can have the data stored in a hyperledger or a blockchain, but we can also, if a customer really wants to store irrefutable proof of when the token was issued, it can also be stored in the blockchain. So essentially, what you see down there is we use Bluetooth, or we can use a more secure channel, which is ultra wideband, which is upcoming and is becoming in use now, much more secured link. So this provides us like 2 or 3 paths connected to the device. So our primary path is through the switch, which is through the cloud. If that's not available, we can also go through the Bluetooth, and we can also send the token that way. And Bluetooth also allows us to act like a trigger. So that does detect the presence of the phone. And once it knows phone is in proximity, it sends the packet out to the kiosk to use the bio token to identify the person. And as Ben said, if it is pre-consented, it can render the service there. And if is not pre-consented, the kiosk can actually ask the person's consent to share the data. And once they do that, then the data is shared with the kiosk to render the service. Also, because we are totally decentralized, we do not depend on a central server. So we do not need any deep integrations with customers' infrastructure. And the beauty of the system is the kiosk is generally used within the customer's firewall. So there's no chance of breaking into it as well. But again, we do not leave any data on any device. So it is wiped off after the service is rendered. So that provides a total assurance to the customer that data cannot be leaked. And one more aspect is, as Ben said, zero trust. So we'd never send any PIA data which has the actual data in it, like date of birth, anniversary date, frequent flyer number, and all that. So the system actually queries and gets a response from it. So that makes sure that there is no data out there that can be stolen from any of the working parts in the system. So I think there's no other system like that out there. It's a very unique system, and it solves a big problem, which is why the facial really hasn't taken off as such, because everybody's trying to centralize solution, and the problem of storage, keeping it updated, and then worrying about getting it lost in from the server in transition is what's keeping it. Our technology solves all those problems. Hopefully that was helpful. Thank you.
It was very helpful, Amar. Thank you very much for that. That was very good. This is kind of some of the UIs that we're using for some of our properties right now. kind of talk away from kind of the architecture to now, what we're doing from a UI UX standpoint for the actual customer to see. But that was very helpful, Armar, to kind of get that very rail system oriented there. But these are the endpoints of those rails. That when you go at home, you can actually sign up for the system. And like Armar was talking about, it actually records and puts this in your vault. And then you can share it when and where you want to choose it. And this is the kind of workflow that it recognizes. This is a consent base, so it automatically knows the person. And then you can go through a couple of UI, UXs or UIs here, and then you can choose how many keys you want and then go straight to the room. And that just end to ends about 18 seconds. The real issue is the encoder. That takes some time to actually encode the key. But that takes that process again from 3 to 5 minutes to 18 seconds. So we're pretty excited with what we're able to do. And then beyond that, of course, like Armar was talking about, from the back end, it's a lot more secure and a lot more capable for the merchant, but also capable for the guest or member of the establishment. So when we look at this from an industry standpoint, these are kind of the main areas that we're focused on within the different ecosystems. And of course, they overlap. And that's why there's such a need for this reusable identity, is people don't need to actually sign up or do this kind of verticality of, hey, this has been Robertson, recognize me for the Macy's or recognize me for the Banana Republic. With Simpello, your information can be shared to that venue seamlessly without even pulling out your app. You can go up, just like Armar was talking about, and be anonymously recognized and use that as the conduit of information that you want to share to that location. Thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate you listening today. We look forward to further conversations, and we're really excited with what we're able to do within the industry to create a simplistic solution set for a host of different problems that we have currently in architecture. So my email is ben@simpello.com, and you can see my other colleagues' emails. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'd love to get any feedback or any thoughts regarding our solution and our platform. Thanks so much for the time.